So tell me a little bit about your maker, where it happens, what it looks like, how long you've been doing it. Go for it.
All right, well, your maker is in Thomasville, Georgia. It's a little town right north of the Florida border. We're in the middle of a bunch of farms, but there's a lot going on here. It's kind of, I describe it as an oasis in a desert of farms. Farm
Okay.
desert. So I've been teaching sewing since 2014. I started out borrowing spaces. I taught at a church, and then I taught at a friend's business, and then I took a job with a company called Everfan. We made superhero capes, and everything was customized. I was a product designer, and the owner of that company was really supportive of what I was doing and let me teach up there, so I didn't have to haul my machines everywhere.
Nice.
And then I did that for about a year and was burning out because I was teaching on Saturdays and I was starting to get busy and I wanted to offer more, but I had a little following and I had to constantly have new projects and I could never offer old projects because the time was so limited. So then I decided to make the leap and open my own studio. So it's like I was at a point where I had to shut down or grow, and I decided to grow. So
Okay, so like, do you have an actual studio space? Is it like downtown Thomasville? Is there like lots of other shops and restaurants? What's it like?
yeah, Thomasville's really cool. They actually have an award-winning Main Street. They're one of the original like Main Street USA, or I can't remember the exact designation, but it's an example that other Main Streets try to follow.
Yeah.
They put a lot of many decades of work into building small business and maintaining that chain store free feel downtown. So we attract a lot of people from Tallahassee and other places on the weekends. There's good food here, and I can't afford to be right on Broad Street, which is also the parking would be a problem. So I'm one block off, which doesn't sound like a lot, but in a small town, a block is pretty far.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm really close to downtown. My first studio was on the other side of the Main Street. I outgrew that within a year, and I moved to a much bigger space now, crossing that street.
Cool. So tell me a little bit about the classes that you offer, because it's not just sewing, and there's a ton of other classes, right?
Yes, my goal when I got my own studio was to host more teachers, to give kids creative opportunities that aren't normal.
Yes.
So my first teacher that I hosted was a computer programmer and digital artist. So he taught for about a year at Your Maker, and then he decided he needed to take a more full-time job. And then, so now in this space, he did move over here with me, but now I have an artist studio where 3 artists rent space to create art all the time. And some of them teach adult classes, mostly painting. And then I have another room where an artist who's more of a maker rents the space, and she also collects vintage items. So it's a lot of things here. She has a small retail store, but also a maker space. And then she teaches kid art classes, and she teaches adult art classes and interior classes. And then we host all kinds of teachers here. So it's it's the only consistent things you'll find here are sewing, because I'm here all the time, and art. But we have someone who's going to do a lettering class. We had what have we had? I'm gonna have a paper making class and things like that. So
Cool. So you're mostly the sewing instructor, but you're kind of
occasional crafts.
okay.
But things that I find interesting.
Yeah.
But I guess I've learned the term is I'm a generalist. So I don't like to do anything over and over and over again. So when I find something that I like, I've been doing a alcohol ink class. Now, some people are trying to tell me I'm an artist, and I don't feel like an artist, but I do it. We have a series called The Click, which is a play on words. It's not exclusive, but it's we have different artists come and teach a method or a medium, or it's kind of, it was like jumping off of the idea of Ladies Drawing Night. You know that book?
No.
Okay. Well, it's a really cool book, and I did an event with the bookstore in town, and it was so cool. We did a progressive painting situation. So everybody worked on a painting, and it was just really cool. And I kind of like that community art feel. So I tried to do something similar. And one of mine is called, we do alcohol inks. So I just have the alcohol inks. I give an overview of how they work. and then people just get to play.
So what does it mean to be alcohol ink? I am not familiar with that at all.
You know, I should know, like, I know that, so you use alcohol to help spread the paint. It's very watery paint.
Okay.
I don't actually know that much about what is in the alcohol paint. I think it's alcohol. I think Sharpies are similar. They're made of like the similar ink.
Oh.
You do the Sharpie like tie-dye with alcohol.
Yeah.
So it's similar to that. And then
it makes it kind of spread out or something.
Yeah, it gives a watercolor look. You don't get a ton of control. And the colors blend, and the way that we do it is very unpredictable, and it's fun to just let them take over and mix colors, and you can put metallics in. It's just very relaxing, and you get to play with the new medium without investing in it, you know? So
yeah. Oh, so you're supplying all the supplies that they would need to take a class.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And so, yeah, it's been really fun. We've had everything from alcohol inks to what was one we did? Oh, we did like vintage map paintings, where you like block out part of the map and paint on it. And then we have a texture class coming up where one of the artists that works here, she adds like the medium to the acrylics, and you build the paint so it's like puffy kind of on the page or on the canvas. So people get to come, and we never teach like an image, you know, you get inspiration images all around you. We supply that, and then you can pick one and copy it, or you can just use them and be inspired and create something of your own. It's just very free class. I mean, it's not free, but it's a very, you're free to.
So cool. So are you self-taught in all of these sort of like areas where you're like, I'm going to learn how to do alcohol painting, and so I'm going to learn how to do it online? Or do you take a class to sort of learn how to do it? What's your process?
Yeah, I'm self-taught because I'm a really curious person. And if I see something that I like and I want to figure out how to do it, I mean, I would never teach an oil painting class. Like, no matter how much I love it and play on my own, I would never teach it. But it's something that I find interesting. I work on it. And then I feel, especially with something like the click, where I don't have to like know everything. Just let you play. I do joy making classes too. And I'm self-taught on that. And then,
you know, I just think that's such good business advice for somebody that wants to do something like this. It's like not being afraid to, you know, as long as you're upright, you know, or upfront about not being an expert, but to just be like, okay, next I'm going to do some like embroidery classes. And even though I'm not an embroidery expert, I know how to do the daisy stitch. I know how to do a chain. I know how to, you know, fill in stuff or whatever. So when did you open your maker?
In October 2014, I launched my website and my first class. I mean, looking back, it's kind of a joke, you know, because I was in a church and I had these old machines, and then I also made people bring their machines, but I had a couple old ones, and I was like, I'll teach you the basics. And so every class they would show up with who knows what machine would come. I mean, I had one lady bring such an antique machine, and I was like, I just don't think we can get your bobbin to work. And so she went to a Walmart and bought a machine and came back. But it was like I had to like figure out how to do everything with all these different machines, and the time that I spent helping people just figure out how to thread their machine was crazy. Now I have 9 machines here, so.
Are they all the same?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I love old sewing machines. Is it something that you sort of like get into? Do you collect them or no? Not really? Okay.
You know what? Like, honestly, there's so much frustration with older machines and how precise you have to be with everything in terms of, you know, holding the top thread and lowering the needle before you sew. And if you accidentally hit the pedal before the foot's down, it's going to jam. You have to rethread, you know. So I have a lot of, because I taught myself as a kid, kind of that frustration is it feels so fresh. So I love these machines that are like yelling at you, like, put the foot down. We're not going to sew until you put the foot down. It's like, it's awesome. And I love it because my main goal, especially in teaching kids, is to get them to love sewing. And if they're constantly, not that I would ever teach on an old machine, but I really like the new computerized machines because I feel like you get to that place of enjoyment a lot faster.
Yes. And how much easier was that first class when all the machines, I feel like you really like train yourself to be like, I can take on the world. Like I had 4 different sewing machines and I was helping them. And then all of a sudden they're all new and you're like, wow, this is a breeze.
Yeah. So I teach mostly kids for sewing. I started out teaching adults, but their attendance was so sporadic, even though I started because I talked to many adults who wanted to learn. But it turns out they'd rather send their kids to learn, you know?
Yes.
So I spent a lot of time trying to reach adults at first, and then I really kind of took off when I started offering kid classes. And I really honestly enjoy teaching kids a lot. Not adults aren't unenjoyable, but the kids are just, everything is new and there's less fear and just fun projects are small, a lot of instant gratification. And so now I'm starting to teach more adults, but I don't think I'll ever teach as many adults as kids.
Okay. Okay. And what's your background before you were an entrepreneur starting in 2014? What was your background?
I was an analyst at a bank.
So different.
Yeah. I've always loved math. I love numbers. And I grew up in a house where my mom was very creative and my dad is an aerospace engineer, but on the side, he did woodworking and metalwork. So there's always this making in my life. And my mom really, when she figured out that I was pretty good at math, really pushed me. Not in a bad way, just like she saw what was out there for a girl who was math oriented. And so I didn't really understand until college that you could be good at math and be creative. I thought they had to be separate. Mm-hmm. And then I took a class in discrete math, and I realized you can't solve this without a creative mind. Like you just can't. You have to look at things differently. And it just kind of like clicked. And then I got back into sewing after college and realized this is a lot of math, and I was really ridiculous. And then I think that gave me a little courage to get back into more serious creating. But I just never thought I could do anything that was polished and worth it because I was good at math, which sounds so dumb, especially now that I'm a mom, but that was really in my head for a long, long time.
Wow. Okay. And so when you decided to open up, did you just sort of like one day go, all right, I'm quitting my job and I'm going to open up this studio where we're going to teach people how to sew and do all kinds of creative things? Is that how it happened?
No, I was at home. So I was an analyst and then I had my kids and I took a break. We moved to Georgia and I could see the school was in the future. You know, I saw that free time coming back and I said, I want to do something creative. I want to do something. I want to contribute, you know, financially. And it has to be creative because I love numbers and I could not go back to that. It was not the right fit for me. Yeah. And so I was like, well, I really have an aversion to selling things I make, like a really bad aversion to it. And so I thought I'll just start making and see what happens, because every time I make something, I'll learn something new and I'll get better, and it's gotta lead somewhere. Yeah. And so I was new to town and people started finding out that I could sew, and I made some of my kids' clothes, and then I would hear either, will you make this for me? Or, oh, I have the sewing machine that I got 10 years ago or whatever, jammed it, put it in my closet. I've always wanted to learn to sew, you know. So I started saying, no, I won't make it for you, but I'll teach you how to make it. So that's kind of, it started there. There's just a lot of things that came together, you know. And then I had a friend who's a consultant and was working with our downtown, and they did a survey about what businesses people want downtown. And one that was people asked for a couple times was a fabric store. And so she took me to lunch and she said, this was around the time I was thinking about starting. And she said, you know, people really want a fabric store and I want you to open it. It's like, pass, but you can help me open a studio. So yeah, it felt like a lot of things coming together. I've really been kind of like praying for the path of where I was supposed to go, and then just I just opened myself up to like whatever. I followed what was making me happy. I did what made me happy, and I really, you know, teaching those first classes was magical. And then I got offered this job as a product designer for a small business, which, you know, the owner of that is now a mentor and really supported me, even though I was his employee, in pursuing my own business and help me get where I am now. So it's kind of just this cool path of getting to here.
Yeah. And it sounds like maybe it was a little bit flexible, that you could you were teaching a little bit, but still having like this job. And so it wasn't completely like diving right in and then being like, oh my gosh, how am I going to make money? That kind of thing. Yeah.
And you know Annabelle Wrigley from Little Pincushion?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know her, but I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. She also helped because when I was ready to open my own studio, I was really scared, really scared. And I contacted her, and she was so kind. And she talked to me on the phone for a long time about what her schedule was like and how she started out, and really was the final push that made me go ahead and sign the lease on my little studio. So without her, really, that she was like the final, you're going to be fine.
So how big, so it sounds like you kind of subsidize like the cost of your rent by subletting little spots within the studio, right? Which sounds really smart to me. You know, you offer other classes, you give them space. There's always something interesting going on in your studio probably. So how does it work? I mean, they kind of have keys and can be there whenever, or how would that work for you?
So the artists that keep their things here and they create, during the day, they all have a key.
Mm-hmm.
And then if it's someone that's going to teach once or twice, then I'll let them in and I'll be there. Yeah. But there are 5 people with a key right now, besides me, that come and teach on a regular basis.
Okay. And you all kind of cover each other. If someone comes in and is like, I'm interested in painting classes, you would have the ability to talk about one of the artists there, her classes or something.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, it's great. I love it. It's just created this really awesome atmosphere where you have a painter, you have like kind of a maker, but also an artist and a sewer, and we have a video artist and another painter. We've had a lot more creative things happening that are really exciting.
Totally. And it's probably a great way to promote the other things that you've got going on. I'm sure people go in for a sewing class and then they're like, oh man, I'm going to try that painting class too. Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it's been really fun to mix because Hillary had a huge following where she was before with her classes. She's amazing. She's magic. Like, I cannot paint, and she can lead me through and watercolor, oil, and it's amazing that my hand did that, because I actually professionally framed one of mine that she taught. Wow. She is amazing. So she has a big following, but those people didn't necessarily know much about the sewing or jewelry making that goes on here or anything else. So it's been fun to, the parents that drop their kids off now come to her classes, and cool.
Oh, that's great. So what advice would you offer to other people that are sort of, gonna try this themselves? What would you say to them?
I would say, and I think this is the advice that Annabelle gave me, was like, just start small. She started in her house, in a living room. I did that for 2 months just to see if I could have enough kids to afford the rent. Yeah. And I had a goal and I met it. And so I signed the lease of this little studio, and I just took it step by step. And I think it's possible to start this business without a lot of, money to begin with. I mean, you have to figure out a way to have machines or have kids with machines. But my first set of machines were all donated. Yeah. People have a lot of machines that are just sitting in a closet. And I think that there's a lot of creative ways to start small.
What is your favorite part about working for yourself now that you've been doing it, almost 4 years probably, right? Or more than 4 years?
I think my favorite part, and I think it's pretty exclusive to something creative, but is that I have to make, and it's my favorite thing. Like, I have to keep creating things to get new ideas, to build my skills, to, advertise. And it's like, before, making was something I had to find time for, because I was working or had to be at home with after my kids went to bed. And now I get to come to the studio and I have all this time, even though I wish I had more time, I get to buy all the supplies that would have been hard to buy if it was just for myself.
Where do you find your inspiration? What inspires you? What makes you try a new craft?
I like to I have a ton of books back here. And I love looking at those books and seeing how they teach the kids, and kind of, I don't know, that's a hard question to answer. A little of everything. And then I really like to read, and I like to read young adult books. And somehow that translates into inspiration for sewing for me. I don't know why. I don't know how. It's just like the energy from young adult books, and like, it's just there's such heightened emotion, and it just makes me want to sit and create. It doesn't make sense. I can't explain the connection, but that's one thing.
No, it's great. And I love that you make time to read. Good for you. Well, thank you so much. This has been awesome. I loved chatting with you, and I love being able now to put a face with an Instagram account. I know exactly who you are, and that's going to be so much fun. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day. Talk to you soon.